So the reason why, like I said, it's a beta blueprint, because I think sometimes as men, instead of us taking a stand and like, hey man, I'm doing this for the family, I'm doing this. It's like sometimes it's like we buy into these philosophies where we're just like, okay, well, she likes receiving gifts. I'm like, who doesn't like receiving gifts? Like, come on, man, we really got to break this down in the book. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even use the term modern. Well, you know, people can use it because I think it's easier to define stuff.
Yeah, it's easier.
I think we just got to get better at defining what modern, because it got a negative stigma online, whereas it's like, you know, everybody's using it modern as like pretty much thoughts.
Jerk, welcome to the Golf Club Podcast.
I know, man, long time overdue, man.
A long time, man.
Wait to come in here and get some of the right in front of the Cava Bowl, man. You know, I always be harassing you about this, but nah, man, I appreciate you bringing me out here, man. Definitely, man. I was excited. I told you I couldn't even sleep last night. I'm like, damn, you know, I finally get to make it to the studio. But man, you definitely did a good job putting this together, man. You could tell like you're real professional and you're definitely taking it to that next level, man. So it's good just to see it in face. I'm like, damn, when you was like showing me around the studio. So man, congrats to you.
No worries. We got the sophisticated jerk in the house, everybody, on the Golf Club Podcast. Hopefully we don't get canceled, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna shut us down. I'm gonna take it easy since your family and stuff. So yeah, I'll keep it a little brief. We're gonna get the nudge on the table.
No, we're gonna do what the women do on their Instagram when they're trying to introduce their boyfriends, the soft launch.
It's like he's a friend, but yeah.
So we're gonna do a soft launch for today on the topics that we have discussed. Okay. But Jerk, we're gonna go right into it. I do want to discuss why you and Manic on the Manic Sophistication, why you guys burned that book, The 5 Love Languages. And quote, I watched the clip that you said. He said that the 5 love languages is a simp manifesto. and a beta blueprint.
Absolutely.
Quote. That was your quote.
Verbatim.
So can you break that down? Why the 5 love languages is a waste of time for men?
Man, because like we've been on podcasts for about I think going on 2 years now. And the issue I mainly have with it is it's almost like it's pushing people, it's marketing to people's like self-centeredness and selfishness to a certain degree. So it's kind of putting it in a clever way of like, hey, both of you people need to focus on, you know, like words of affirmation.
I haven't written it down.
Oh, you do?
So the 5 love languages is words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, and quality time.
Okay.
So
like those like you mentioned, those are the 5 pretty much love languages. So it's teaching both people like, hey, you need to do kind of like read these things, and the other person needs to understand you to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But here's the issue I have, because on the surface it don't seem bad. But say like, okay, you're with a female, you're a hardworking guy. I already know that. You're willing to die for her. You know, you put your family first. You know, we talk about all the time. You're thinking about legacy.
Yeah.
Why isn't that like selfless right there? All those acts already, you know, you're already committed, but just because you don't do it as that person's specific way, you know, it's almost kind of like they're nitpicking that person, and you're missing like all the great things they do for you. So that's what I'm saying. It's almost like it's creating like a extra layer of people just like nitpicking, complaining about stuff that might not really exist. So it's like, do you really need me to like come home and give you all these words of affirmation if I'm like sitting there and I'm thinking about you constantly? I'm thinking about the family moving ahead. So the reason why, like I said, it's a beta blueprint, because I think sometimes as men, instead of us taking a stand and like, hey man, I'm doing this for the family, I'm doing this. It's like sometimes it's like we buy into these philosophies where we're just like, okay, well, she likes receiving gifts. I'm like, who doesn't like receiving gifts? Like, come on, man. We really got to break this down in the book. You know what I'm saying? Like I got to start doing this extra stuff, and I got to play into like I said, the self-centeredness to like make you happy. And then it's like eventually people are going to burn out, because that's what we're seeing, you know, with the high divorce rates. Because I remember some female wrote on the comments, because they were going in on me and Manic. They're like, hey, you guys, they should pretty much. But I was like telling one of them, I'm like, hey, you know, there was relationships going back for like 3,000 years before this book was written, and nobody had no issues. So why all of a sudden now, like everybody's got to pick this book up, and, you know, everybody's got to start conforming to like, oh my God, I got to start doing all these different things to please this other person, when really it should be about I know we talked about it like, damn, even last week, appreciation and awareness, and gratitude. So it's just like, I think people need to focus on self more, what they can do for other people, versus like all this like superficial stuff. So yeah, I think it's just a marketing campaign. So of course we went over the top a little bit, you know, by burning it, but it's just like, yeah, guys, we start hearing more and more guys like, oh, you know, my love language is quality time, and you know, they're starting to echo this stuff back, and you know, it's taking us from that, like I said, that place of where what we're talking about, like, hey man, you got to focus on your legacy and your family. And it's just like, the more we keep doing the superficial stuff and materialistic things, it's like it's pulling us away from like the end goal. You know, that's why everybody's like saddled in debt. You know, that's where everybody's like lacking in their retirement plans and stuff. So it's just like, you know, we're taking our eyes out the prize, getting distracted by all these like I said, selfish like acts and stuff. So yeah, that's the main purpose of it. But yeah, definitely a SIP manifesto still, Beta blueprint.
I do agree with you that it's more focused on your selfish needs for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to building a relationship, I think it's more based on duty and obligation for the benefit of the relationship. I remember Paulo Coelho said, when men and women are talking about the prize, like, who's the prize? Is the man the prize? Is the woman the prize? It's neither. The prize is the relationship.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So if both parties are investing and putting in work and fulfilling their expectations and duties towards each other for the relationship to work, that's the ultimate goal. The love languages, you're more focused on my personal needs instead of what are the needs that we need to fulfill to make this work.
No, absolutely, right? And that's a great breakdown, because I even my wife was giving me a little pushback. She's like, I don't think there's no issue with it, but I'm like, okay, let me reverse with you, and I was like, man, you do a lot of great things, man. You know, you're going out, you're working for the family, you know, very selfless, like puts everybody first. So I was like, so say like you're doing all this stuff for the family, and I come and I'm just like, oh man, you really don't buy me gifts and stuff, even though you're putting the household first. You know, wouldn't that kind of be like a shitty move where it's like you're sitting there, like you said, you're bringing it back to self versus like you're not appreciating what that person provides and the sacrifices they're making. So that's the state that I think all these like authors, like I said, they're kind of clever, because they're like, hey man, it's like a superficial society. Let me phrase it like, oh, people,
they're taking advantage of the society.
So that's why I think everybody's just marketing to everybody's like emptiness to a certain degree. And it's just like, oh, the next book is going to come out something else clever. Like, hey, this person needs to do this, versus, you know, why don't you appreciate what they're doing? They're loyal, they're committed to you. And we're finding out more and more through all these conversations where we're talking to people. It's like, man, it's rare to find a good person. So it's like, if you ask for a good person, you know, you need to appreciate that, versus like, oh, feel entitled, like, oh, they should be doing that for me, because it's rare. Not too many people are like, we hear it all the time, are like us, built like us, man. So
yeah, you made a great point. If a man is out there fulfilling all his duties and obligation to the family, right? He goes to work every single day, he pays the bills, he takes care of his woman, make sure they're protected, has a roof over their head. He's loyal, he's committed to the relationship. What more can you ask?
That's what
right? He loves his woman, respects his woman. What more can you ask that man? And are you going to get upset just because if that man fulfills all his duties and obligation, that just because he doesn't give you gifts, right? And then there's a problem in the relationship, in the marriage, right?
And that's what it's just getting people to like push the goal even further. Because it's like, man, like you said, that person's coming home, they're killing it. But it's like, just because somebody didn't do something the specific way that you like, now it's like, okay, well, I feel unfulfilled because you didn't fulfill my love language. So that's what the breakdown is.
I think Manik said it on that clip you guys posted. A lot of these things are common sense, right? Of course, right? It's like the words of affirmation, the physical touch, the acts of service, gifts, quality time. But I think that's where the communication comes along. One of the problems with this is you're more worried about your needs and what a book says instead of just communicating to your partner what you need.
I agree.
And figure that out. Right. And I think also one of the issues with that book, it doesn't tailor it depending on the situation or the relationship. So say if you have a man that's working to be highly successful, you know, he wants to live a 1% life and is working his ass every single day to provide that for you. The quality time may not work for you, right? Now the guy that's 9 to 5, you know, he has the weekends off. You know, that quality time may be better for you to get more quality time with your man. But if you're reading that book and you think that's tailored for all men, and not understanding that different men have different levels of ambitions of what they're trying to achieve and the legacies they're trying to achieve, the guy that's working to build that 1% life, he's not going to have a lot of quality time compared to the normal guy that you see working the 9 to 5. And because you read that book and say that your man's supposed to give you quality time in the weekends, and then you go complain to your man you work too much, and the guy's like, I'm busting my ass right now. I'm busting my ass right now to build a legacy.
Because even on Thursday when we were talking about like we was having a conversation, we started breaking it down to you know, the ladies that was on the panel and stuff. Another thing is just like, you know, when you're working, and then like, say for you, I'm just using you as example, man, hard worker, you're going to work. Then also like, you know, you're trying to build like another business, like the podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
So just say like when you come home, you just want to wind down. You might have had a bad day or something. Yeah. So, you know, that person ain't gonna be looking at it from that like lens. You know, they're gonna be like, oh well, he's just, you know, goes to work and comes and flops down on a couch or something. Why ain't he, like you said, doing a quality time?
Yeah,
you know, so people misread this stuff at first. It's like, you know, coming to, like you said, having that communication with you, like, hey, Will, what's going on? And you be like, look, I'm so focused. I'm thinking about like the economy, how it's impacting people. I'm trying to make sure I position this ahead of that, you know. So like you said, people ain't having no conversations. They're just thinking about themselves, you know. And so that's why, like I said, they're just having that emptiness. Now it's like, oh, this Will doesn't do A, B, C, D. Let me leave him and jump out there because he's not fulfilling my love language. So now people jump out there in that market. They're like, oh man, you know, I lost a good guy because these dudes ain't nowhere near closest, committed, have the loyalty like him and stuff. So yeah, that's what it seems like. These type of books is just getting us, it's playing into our unhappiness, like I said. And then it's just like, man, we're humans, man. Nobody's gonna be perfect. It's just like people do need downtime from work because we're all like somewhat on that hamster wheel, man. You know, all because of loans, the economy and stuff. So it's just like we're low key beating each other up for like unnecessary things instead of having that appreciation and gratitude.
I think the 5 love languages is more of pushing towards the Disney fairy tale or what people think.
A little bit of the greed, like it does it in a clever way, where it's just like, oh well, you both should have an understanding. You got to read your other person what they want. Yeah. But Manic also said a good thing in that clip. You just brought it up to me, where it's just like, damn near everybody's like majority of that stuff. Yeah. Where it's like words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time. But it's just like we have limited time. You working like Monday through Friday. I like what you pointed out. Where it's just like, shit, you only really got Saturday and Sunday. You got to do your chores on the weekend, like your catch up, cleaning, running errands, grocery shopping. So it's just like we're all dealing with like limited time unless you can get rich. You know? But other than that, it's just like, you know, we're time is so slim. So it's just like quality time. You know, you might just have to communicate with that person. Be like, look, let's just do something simple, or you know, like I told my wife, hey, jump on some of these podcasts with me, help me out with this. So you just got to redefine it. But it always have to be, like you said, based on my own selfish needs or the other person.
When I think about the 5 love languages, I think that's the things we do in the honeymoon phase when we're dating, in the beginning phase. But when the relationship goes to 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, when I talk to people who are married for a long period of time, they don't do that stuff on a daily basis. You've been with your partner for a long time. You're committed. You're with that person, right? Like the idea that you're going to say words of affirmation for 30, 40, 50 years every single day to your partner, and that's why your relationship is going to work. You know, your relationship is going to work because you guys have similar values and you guys are committed towards each other. Yeah. All right. So through thick and thin, you're going to figure it out. And of course, there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times. The problem I have the 5 love languages is this false sense of expectation that your partner has to do these things. And that's the indicator of that this relationship is going to work. So if you're going with somebody and then maybe for a whole week they don't give you the words of affirmation, then a lot of women might think, oh, this relationship is starting to fail.
Point too, because like you said, it's like, man, if I was intentional, I selected you. Obviously, man, I think highly of you, especially like if you know you're a guy with standards. Like we talk about discipline and all that. It's like, man, if we were willing to give all that up and be with you, man, we already saw like certain qualities and stuff, and it's just like you said, it's like, I don't need to just say stuff to you. And I think a lot of times that's how women get fooled too, man. Well, like now that I'm thinking about it, because it's like the guys that would just like throw that stuff out there. Those are typically the dudes that are like just trying to run through chicks and stuff. So, you know, they'll give them all the words of affirmation. What they be like love bombing, what they call it. Yeah,
love bombing.
That's pretty much that's what I'm saying. When you start dealing on that surface level. This is how people actually get caught up in like scams and stuff like that, because it's just like that person knows to a certain degree, like, oh, okay, man, damn, let me read this love languages and just regurgitate all this stuff. Let me buy them some gifts, real quick, and I'll do all this stuff. Meanwhile, like we said on a couple podcasts, it's like, hey, the guy that's actually for you, he's gonna come to you like, look, I don't blow money because I'm saving for my future. I'm doing this. I'm pumping my money into my business. I'm doing this. So he might not have a lot of like loose cash to do a bunch of crazy stuff. So yeah, man, women misread a lot of this stuff. And like I said, it just traps them into a state where, they kind of play into that unhappiness, or they think they could do better and they go jump out there with, those patch of guys, what they be saying. And like, they kind of find out like, damn, you know what? They love bomb me. They did this and this.
Yeah, not only is it a simp manifesto, but it's also a book to fool women.
Yeah. So it's definitely a simp manifesto, and like, it's multiple like bad purposes, man. That's why I said it's a bad book. We started breaking it down. We're like, man, this is actually terrible, man. This is like for selfish people to a certain degree. So yeah, but it's definitely a simp manifesto.
I know.
Guys should not shut it down. Be like, look, man, I love you. I'm willing to sacrifice for you. I want to build our legacy.
Yeah,
I'm about growth. I'm not entertaining none of this other stuff. If you don't like what I'm kind of producing, you have the right to like leave. I understand, but I'm not playing that game. I'm focused on the legacy, what we always say, the word that people throw around is, it left me. But it's just like, the end goals and stuff. That's what I'm focused on, building this up. So I don't have time to like entertain like all this like selfish acts. So when guys start echoing this stuff, I'm like, man, you're buying into this like worldly nonsense.
All right, man. So all the simps out there, man, start reading. Start reading that book.
Burn the books.
Yeah, burn that book. I should have bought a zodiac sign book so we can burn it today.
Yeah, that's the next one.
It's the next one. I do want to shift the conversation to what is the new traditional? A traditional man, right? And woman. A lot of the things that we see online, men and women are always saying, I want a traditional man. But we have to understand and accept the reality that most men and women today are not traditional. Traditionally, people saved themselves for marriage and got married, then had sex, then had children, right? That's the traditional way.
No, absolutely.
Most people aren't doing that. What do you consider the new traditional? Because we have to adapt to today's dating market. Modern dating's changed for both men and women. What do you consider the new version of the traditional man and woman today? So we can start with the man. So traditionally, the man was the 100% provider protector. He paid for all the bills. He took care of the household. He was the leader. That was the definition of the traditional man.
Yeah.
So we understand today that based on the economy, based on inflation, based on depending on where you live, in the city where you live, it's really difficult for a man to pay all the bills on his own, right?
Yeah.
Unless he's making 1% type of money. That the average guy making about $50,000 a year, especially if we say San Francisco, $50,000 a year is going to be really difficult to pay your bills and take care of your family in San Francisco on that salary. At this point of time in your life, in today's economy, you have to combine your resources and your income with your woman, and then build yourself up to a point when you can eventually, if you have a plan, get a promotion, make more higher levels of income, then you can be able to get to that point where she can take a step back and you can pay majority of the bills. Maybe not 100%, but maybe 60, 70, 80%.
Yeah.
And that will still be a good provider protector, right?
Yeah.
But it won't be 100% like traditionally back in the day. So that was an example when you start for the fellas. But in your perspective, what would you consider the new traditional man in modern times?
Okay. Well, I kind of like what you and Paulo did as far as the masculine mindset.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, man, y'all focus on masculinity. Yeah. I think that's the cornerstone of anything, like the discipline and the standards, the values, and all that stuff that you guys mapped out. So I think like once you kind of have that as your foundation, I just think anything you really do is going to kind of, because like you said, you have the traditional values, but I mean, we just, we kind of started doing stuff different. So it's just like by definition, you look at modern, it just really means like you're kind of adapting to current times.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people get tricked up with the words and stuff. So it's just like we're traditional with the standards and stuff. We're manly men, man.
Yeah.
Like all of us in that group, we might do stuff, like I said, differently, like the preferences, we might like something, but it all boils down to, like, I'll say like 90% of the stuff we're going to kind of do the same because it's rooted into like like I said, a higher purpose, like family and stuff. So I would just say now, like you mentioned it, we just have traditional values, but we're modern in a sense. Because I mean, even if you look back at like traditional, like men, a lot of stuff they didn't do that great.
Yeah.
So if you kind of looking at it like, hey man, okay, they had good qualities that I mimicked, but I left behind a lot of the like bad stuff. So for example, like say like you're like, for example, my wife, she works. She doesn't have to because I make good money, but we just looked at it from a different standpoint. Like, look, if we put your money down on a house and we pay down all these bills, we definitely could make sure we leave money behind for our legacy. Because, you know, just in our time, you know, we're like in our 40s. Man, I remember me and my wife was just actually talking about it yesterday. I was like, man, you remember when we were like 20 something, we could go to the grocery store, it'd be like 2 carts full of stuff, you know, for like $200 something. Now, man, it's like toilet paper, some laundry pods, maybe a frozen pizza or something. So it's just like, man, you know, the price of goods just changed and stuff. So we looked at it like, okay, if we combine and we're doing this for the right purposes, not only we build our legacy, we're making sure we're topping off like our retirements, you know, for 2 people. Because even if like you one person kind of pays for everything, I'm helping people with their finances. It's just, you know, they're not topping retirements out for 2 people. So it's like when they get to like 60 something, they're going to have to make some tough decisions and stuff. So we were like, okay, we could do that. We could also like pay our house off of 10 years, which is going to save us like $500,000. So I think, you know, people are just getting a little more financially savvy, where it's just like, hey, you know, we could do it from this component. This don't mean I'm sacrificing leadership, because I think a guy that has those principles and values that we outlined is coming to the table. Like you're bringing knowledge too, where it's just like, hey, let's do this and we're going to get far ahead. Even our legacy is even going to be protected. So I think people just got to get in the mindset, like it might look a little different, but if you're bringing that guidance and the knowledge, that's what the leadership really is. You're just doing leadership at a higher level. So sometimes people get it confused, where it's like, oh, if she's working, you know, she's not going to kind of listen to you. It's like, no, a lot of times, a lot of successful women might not listen to guys because they just want control. They don't want to bring the knowledge and all that stuff, the structure. They're not like planning ahead. They're not going out there learning about finance. So it's just like, hey, give me your money and let me run it. So she might be looking at him like, I seen what you did with your money. That ain't all that great. I'm not trying to go down that path. So I think it just depends on like you as a guy, what you're always kind of like having that growth and stuff. So yeah, I'll just say like guys nowadays, I wouldn't even use the term modern. Well, you know, people can use it because I think it's easier to define stuff.
It's easier.
I think we just got to get better at defining what modern, because it got a negative stigma online, where it's just like, you know, everybody's using it modern as like pretty much thoughts.
I know.
Guys that are like weak and stuff, where it's just like, hey man, nah, you know what? The old generation, we definitely took some like knowledge from them, but they didn't do a lot of stuff right. They didn't leave us like legacies behind and stuff. You know, if you look at it, some parents I know, like in certain communities, like had kids everywhere and stuff like that. So they did a lot of stuff that was wrong. So I think we just took what the good stuff was and kind of moved it forward. Because if you look at it, a lot of people, they're not having kids, a lot of kids out of wedlock, the numbers are decreasing. So it's like people are learning. So I think more that's like kind of what what's happening and stuff. But I definitely agree with you guys. Like it definitely needs to be some, it's got to be rooted in like family. It's got to be bigger than just like, oh, well, I want her to pay some bills and stuff because of self-centered reasons. Should be tied to some finances or the household. So
and you made a great point. When it comes to traditional, it's not more focused on what the man does, but more focused on the type of man he is based on his values, right? And the thing we always talk about on the Mastermind, the 3 tenets of masculinity, which is discipline, resiliency, and accountability. So the reason why it's a good conversation to have, because, you know, we've been on panels before. A lot of women, they always say, I want a man that pays 100% of the bills. And they will not consider him a traditional man unless he pays 100% of the bill. I saw on the clip that you guys mentioned before on your channel as well, is you guys wouldn't consider a man to be a true provider protector unless he's making at least $300,000. Right, somewhere around that, right? That figure, and that makes sense. That, you know, that figure, especially in today's economy, right? Even in San Francisco, 100,000 is low income. And I was reading an article the other day. It said that to be able to live comfortably in this type of city, you have to make at least 300,000, 400,000, right? So So for the women out there that are wanting a traditional man that pays 100% of the bills, the reality is that's a long shot. All right. There's only a small percentage of guys making that type of income. So what's the solution to that? I think the solution would be finding a man that has the values, which is accountability, that even though he may start at a lower income, or maybe the average income, which is $50,000, but he's accountable to be able to put himself in a position eventually to take over, and he has a plan to work with you. You know what? Let's combine our incomes right now and save money. Have a financial plan to eventually, if the outcome the woman wants, I don't want to work long term. I want to fall back into be more in my feminine role, and I just want to depend on my man to pay 100%. But even though my man right now he can't pay 100% of the bills, but at least he has the values, which is accountability, resiliency, and discipline, and he also has a plan to work his way up every single year to eventually go from 50% of paying the bills to 70% to 85%, and maybe 10 years later, he may get to 90 or 100%.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
As women, they have a better chance of finding that type of man that's making less money, but has a plan to make that type of money to eventually take that role, instead of just waiting to find that $300,000, $400,000 man, which is the long shot.
Yeah, because also I like what you're breaking down, because it's just like, if you wait till that guy gets to 300,000, because that's what's happening with some people, man. It's like everybody's like postponing like relationships.
Yeah.
Now everybody's protective. You know too much now, so it's just like dudes that's making 300,000. He's looking at everybody like, you're coming to get my money, and I gotta like watch out for you. Sign this prenup. So everybody's guarded at that certain degree where, like you were talking about, like if you grow with somebody, then they're going to reward you with, they're going to look at you totally differently.
Yes.
Hey man, what do you want to,
you were there.
Options.
You
like,
were there.
Hey, do you want to work, or what do you want to do? Like, I got you either way. But yeah, if you coming in at 30, they're like, like I got to look out for you. So it definitely don't work that well. And just going back to what you're saying as far as the finances, I mean, why we said like the 300,000 number, because like I said, you got to, I think to match out 401ks, I forgot how much it is. It's like 26,000 or whatever that. So you got to do that for two people. So, that's already like damn near 50,000 out of your salary. Then whatever the taxes that comes out of that, your mortgage, so when you start health insurance, all this stuff. So when you start kind of like going down the block, people are like, yeah, that's an outrageous number. But I'm like, nah, when you're putting away for two people and you're supposed to be topping it out, man, because you're supposed to be planning for 2 retirements, it's really not far fetched. So yeah, it's just kind of, like you said, a lot of females, they're like, oh, the traditional man would do all this. They're kind of doing it from a sense of trying to take advantage of somebody, because it's, it's not rooted in anything where really like, hey, I want to do this because like of my family. Now you do have some women. I think the one lady, that Milagros, that came on there. Yeah. And you have women like Paulo's wife. You can tell that they're rooted in like faith and supportive of their man, and they proved to them like they had like the vision for everybody, which makes sense. But I don't think a lot of women are like that. They're just looking at it like, hey, I want to come home and I'm trying to chill and they're like retire, versus like they don't mention nothing about the family, like schooling the kids and stuff. What they're willing to sacrifice to get that. Because like you said, it's like, hey man, if you're on a limited salary, like some things got to go. And I like what Milagros is saying, like, hey man, I gave up my car. I had to give up some things, because the reality is like you can't function with all that stuff. So I think the traditional guys kind of stayed the same to a certain degree. Yeah. But I think the expectations and the wants for women, that's what changed. So it's just like, you can't even do it. Because think about a cell phone plan for a family, man. Like, that's even expensive. Cable packages, we got to have internet and stuff. You got like 2 car bills if somebody's like at the, and it's just unmanageable because of our wants and our expectations. So, one thing we got to get better at, I think, when we having these conversations, like, okay, you want a traditional man, what you willing to give up? You willing to give up? Because I only met 2 females. That's what I'm saying. Well, 3, like Paulo's wife, Dames, 4, Milagros and Lovely were the only ones that ever talked about what they were willing to sacrifice. All the rest of them is like, they're thinking about vacations, chilling. So you don't hear no sacrifice with that money, man. So like you said, they're just thinking about the multi-millionaire guy and
for selfish reasons.
Yeah, for selfish reasons, and chilling at the house. It's not embedded in like the family and moving it to the next level.
Now you made a great point. A lot of women today, they only want the traditional men because they want to be saved. right? That's it. That's it.
They want that life, right?
They want to be safe, right? We had a panel, I think it was last week, when Damien, shout out to Damien, one of the girls on the panel said that she wanted a traditional man so she can just live a stress-free life. And then Damien had to break down, marriage is not a stress-free life.
Hell.
The type of man that you're looking for, especially the traditional masculine man, provider, protector, he's also expecting that woman to add value to his life. And a lot of
that panel,
yeah, right. And a lot of the things that those women do also is going to be a lot of stress. You know, raising children, it's a lot of stress for a lot of women to raise good children, right? Being a good mother there's going to be a lot of stress. So this stress in the man's role, there's also stress in the woman's role. But the idea that you're going to be with a man that's going to fully provide your life, and you're just going to sit at home and do absolutely nothing and be on Instagram and traveling the world and doing the things you want to do and add no value to his life. That's not the reality of that dynamic of that relationship. You're going to have to work, and you're going to have to make sacrifices. That man is sacrificing himself, the things he needs to do for that relationship, and you're going to have to make sacrifices for that man as well. And plus, that man is also there, so he has options. So what's going to separate you from all the other women that's going to try to be with him? And if you just come to the relationship saying, I just want to be saved and live a stress-free life, take me. You made a great point. A lot of women don't understand that if you want to meet that type of level of man, you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, things that tend to be more normalized for modern independent women. You're going to have to give a lot of the things that you see a lot of women today that have today, if you want a traditional relationship. And you made a great point. The women that we've seen so far that are with those types of men, you know, Damien, Balo, a lot of the women had to make sacrifices, which was the career, going out with their friends, the single life, adjusting their values to their man's values, the way they dress, they present themselves, the way their moral character, the way they represent their man, the way they follow their man's leadership, all those things. So those are a lot of the things they had to work on and give up to be with that man. But oftentimes when we talk to those women on the panel, I want a traditional man, but they don't talk ever about the things that they're going to sacrifice.
Yeah.
But you want that man to damn near sacrifice his whole life so he can give you a legacy and live a financial free life.
And see, and that's why me and Manic always gave everybody a lot of pushback, because it's not because of the traditional lifestyle at all, man. Like I said, I think it's commendable. Like, however you're looking at it, you know, if you're putting your family first, like, hey, this is what we feel like it's going to get us to the next level, by all means, you know, move forward on that. But like you said, a lot of, like I said, these females, they're looking at it from a standpoint of like, I want this guy to come in, keep everything under the current circumstances. Like we said, both cars and none of that. So that's their expectation. Like, take on all these bills and you take that. Then it's also like you were saying, it's just, it's unrealistic, because if some guys will sign up for that, but they get burnt out. This is why a lot of dudes like cheat when they start getting burnt out. Like you said, like other women start hollering at them at work and they start grasping on. Then a lot of the females, they get kind of burnt out with some of the stuff too, because man, if you look at the divorce rates for like some of those stay-at-home moms, they're pretty high, man. And they always cite like a lack of fulfillment. So it just shows like a lot of this stuff, when it's not rooted in like the bigger picture, it tends not to last, man, because like I said, some people have that emptiness and stuff. So yeah, me and Manic, we always try to get that pushback, because we're like, look, if a guy is willing to take that on, and it is pretty risky, you know, it's just like, it should be kind of like a reward, like, hey, you know, you're selfless, so I see that you are rooted in something different, and you know what, I got you. Whatever you kind of want to do for the family, I'm going to support that. But it seems sometimes like from the conversations, guys are just like, okay, we're traditional, we're going to take this on, man, without making that assessment. They're not moving intentional. And that's why I always like try to separate. I'm like, hey, you guys know what you're doing, but some of these guys don't know what they're doing out here. So they're going to be like, okay, man, I got to be traditional. I'm going to take this stuff on. And, you know, they get the wrong female that don't align, you know, with like the principles and stuff. They're just, like you said, they're trying to retire. That's going to be the same one that's going to clean them out. Yeah. Because we just seen it too many times. Because we even see celebrities, you know, that have chefs, cleaners, and it's those type of women that would like, you know, kind of hide behind the traditionalism and use the words, the terminology now. Yeah. And they're not happy. They're cleaning them guys out and stuff. So that's why we're like, hey, man, move with caution. Make sure you reward I say the right female that is going to put the work in for the home and stuff, and is doing it for different things, willing to sacrifice. Yeah, reward that female. But some of these, don't do it. You know, it's like a buyer beware type thing. Yeah.
You just want to use it and spend your money.
Yeah. So that's why we kind of get pushed back, because we're like, hey, some of them, the way that they're even talking, like you said, I like exactly what you said. Like, hey, they don't mention anything about the sacrifice. It's just, hey, me type of thing.
You said there's a lot of guys who think they're masculine, who think they're provider protectors, but their women played them and convinced them.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, hey, just pay all the bills and you're masculine and you're a provider protector.
Yeah.
And then so what's the difference of a true masculine provider protector leading his relationship and paying all the bills between women convincing their man to think that they're the masculine provider protector? And I'm asking this question for the guys out there watching this right now. So give you guys a wake-up call if you find yourself in a situation that you think you're paying all the bills. And we've had panels before where, quote unquote, women came on the panel and they described themselves as traditional. But as more information came out on that podcast and we learned a lot more of their relationship dynamic, then we realized after that podcast, like, no, she's the leader of that relationship. Yeah. She's the masculine leader in that relationship. Yeah. He's following her, and she's telling him to go out there and pay all the bills, and I can just stay at home and do what I do and have time to be on the podcast. So what's the difference?
I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. No, that's a good question. So like, I'll say the actual masculine ones are the ones like that speak about it. Like I said, I kind of touched on it a little bit. Like Dame, Paulo, and even you, because like when you guys use the terminology, you're using it in the right way. You're like, hey man, I want to have a bigger family. You know, I want her to like have the option to stay at home and, you know, work with the kids and stuff. So that's what I'm saying. You're speaking from a position of like, hey, this might be the best way for our household. We know what like torn families do. So you're looking at it from all those angles and stuff. So it's masculine because, like I said, you guys are looking at it from that like that leadership component, and then you guys also know like, hey, I got to go get a female that like wants that, you know. Yeah. But I think a lot of the guys where they got tricked because a lot of the females are, like I said, pushing the terminology like, oh, I want the provider male, I want the traditional lifestyle, you know, I should be sitting at the house, you know. I measure my man's masculinity by like what time I wake up in the morning. You know, we heard that one.
Hey, we heard that one before.
Like, so it's not like I said, it's never for the family. It's just like on some like superficial stuff. Like, what can I get out of this situation?
Like they're getting more out of that situation more than the family dynamic.
Yeah, so you could tell like those type of guys, because like what you're asking is just like, man, you can spot them because they don't really talk about like the things you guys talk about, the family component. Like, teaching the kids and all that it's just coming like, well, I just wanted to give this for her, man. So, you know, they start using all the jargon so she could rest in her femininity. So when you ask them, like, start breaking this down, like, what's that mean? Like, or what she do for you? Oh, well, man, she really doesn't do too much. Like you said, the whole thing just starts crumbling. So, yeah, that's what I think the biggest difference is. It's like you could tell the guys that's actually like coming from a masculine side because it's rooted in family. Than even their females, because I know you interviewed like Paulo and his wife, man, and I heard that was a great interview. But they were like mimicking the same stuff, you know. And Dame, I know him and his wife, like they mimicked the same stuff. And then when Milagros came up, it was just like all about sacrifice and hey, how great her husband was. You see, like she wasn't talking about him from like you said, like she had a leadership component. Like, well, you know, I do this, and it was just like, hey, man, he's a great man. This is what I do on a regular, and I love it. I love the fact that he gave me the opportunity and stuff. So they speak about you in a different way. And the other females are just like, hey, it's all like what they gain from that process and how they're chilling pretty much.
I think one tall tale sign from the previous panels we had was when women are talking about making decisions for their family, but they're the ones making it. A previous podcast before where one of the girls said her husband wanted to buy a car, but I told him no. Right, she said, he worked so hard and he wanted to buy this car, but I told him it's a waste of money. That's how I knew, he's not leading that relationship.
Facts. Because even one of the friends was let him buy it.
No masculine man that's really doing a great job of paying all the bills and he has money to spend. he's gonna buy what he wants to buy.
No, absolutely. Right, yeah. And then you could tell like that's a good point, because even like I couldn't even imagine, because you know sometimes
we don't ask, masculine men don't ask for permission.
No, yeah, but even like if I was like looking to buy something, and I'd be like, I probably don't need it. My wife be like, hey man, get it. You know, you worked hard, man. And that's what I'm saying. They're gonna like push you to like fulfill that need that you want.
Yeah, from that example of that girl when she mentioned it, because we did ask her on that panel, it's like all the bills are paid, right? Everything's taken care of. It's like, yeah. He just wanted to buy a car. You know, we have more than enough money. All the bills were paid. He just wanted to get something nice for himself.
Yeah, that shit would have been parked in the front. Like, why are you doing that? I'm like, hey, listen, shut up.
You know, and I know that, I know for sure that if my bills are taken care of, my family's taken care of, and I have the money to buy the things I want, I'm not asking my wife.
Nah, man, you gotta like.
I'm gonna go buy it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm going to be reasonable. You know, I'm not gonna go try to buy something I can't afford, right? But I'm gonna go buy what I want to buy. I'm not gonna ask for permission.
See, and that's the masculinity. That's how you're talking. You're like, look, man, you're gonna factor all that stuff.
Yeah,
like you said, you ain't gonna just make some random purchase. But like you said, man, if I'm taking care of business and everybody's in a good state, man, I'll be damned if somebody go come and like. Treat me like my mom or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, I'm gonna go get daddy. You're gonna suck it up. You're gonna be low in your feelings, but eventually you're gonna pretend like you like it. You know.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, you're the simp. You're the simp. But I want to talk to you about the 50-50 dynamic. I know we had a whole conversation about that.
50-50.
Yeah, I know me. You're the 50-50 guru. You and Manning are the 50-50 guru. Me and Balafessa, we call it the hybrid. We call it the hybrid.
I like that too.
Yeah. So I think it's a good conversation to have, because the reason why me and Balafessa, I gave you and Manning so much pushback, we have an understanding that women tend to respect your man more if they are the leader and the provider protector. So I think what a lot of guys are finding hard is we live in a time where women can make more money. The reason why we gave you pushback is how can your woman still be able to respect you as a man and still give you that authority over the relationship if you're not making as much money as her, or if she out earns you. So that's why we were anti 50-50 relationship, because we know for a fact that if you're making the same type of income as that woman, or she makes more than you, her own biological nature as a woman to seek stronger, more competent, or more financial resourceful men, it's a ticking time bomb. Eventually, they're gonna go find somewhere else. So that's when we had the conversation, and me and you and Balafessa and Manic had that debate, and then we realized that you guys have a different dynamic that works, where the woman still works, and you guys find a way that you don't lose your masculinity, and you don't lose your respect from your woman, and she still sees you as the leader in that relationship. So can you kind of break that down for everybody? How you can find yourself in a situation where you probably, in modern times, where you both have to pay bills and you both have 50-50 when it comes to income. How can men navigate when they're both paying bills to make sure that you don't lose your masculinity, and you don't lose your authority and your respect for a woman, being the man of the household, being the leader of the household?
So when you and Paulo and we had that first conversation, I mean, it was a great conversation anyways. And I like the fact that people, man, you guys brought us on to like have an understanding. And that's one thing I always respect about you.
Yeah.
It's like, it wasn't like, hey, we made this assumption. It's like you guys asked questions, and, you know, we all had a good conversation. And after that, you know, that's when we all,
you changed our perspective
too, because like I think a lot of guys can't do it.
Yeah.
But that's why like when I was talking to you guys, I was like, hey man, if y'all are gonna be the same guys in any dynamic, just how you operate. So I think sometimes as men, we limit ourselves based on like other people's limitations, even though we might be operating at a different level, we're masculine and stuff. We might see other guys have failures, and then we'll be like, oh, damn, you know, well, females might treat all of us like that. That ain't the case, because it's just like with the whole 50-50 dynamic. I think if you're a high earning man, you know, man, you keep your physical in shape, you know, your mentality based on like being productive and stuff. I think you just add way much more than just money. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, for example, like me and my wife, like I said, we do the 50-50. But I mean, I bring so much more value. Like,
yeah, when you first met her, like, what was the split when it comes to your income contribution towards the relationship?
Yeah, it was even 50-50.
50-50, yeah.
But you know, like I broke it down to her, because it was just like I came to her with a vision. I was like, hey man, we could play the old same game that everybody plays, and it's just like, you know, they kind of go, they through life, pay debt a little bit.
Yeah.
Or we could like team up and get ahead of all this stuff and just live a different lifestyle. So, you know, I always just made sure I was learning about finances and stuff. So I would bring that information back home to her, and I'm breaking it down from a different perspective. It's not just like, hey, I need you to pay bills because I want you to. It was just like, look, if we get in front of this debt, we could eventually get to a place where we're like, it's just enjoying life. We're doing it from a different level. So like even a couple of years ago when that market was changing with the housing and stuff like that, you know, I was just driving around in the morning. I remember my wife was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, because I was just waking up early because I just can't sleep. And I'm just like, damn, you know, we were renting a place and they were trying to jack up the rent, or we were going to actually buy that house, but they went up like $100,000 overboard. I was like, I'm not about to pay $100,000 extra on this house because it's not worth that.
Yeah.
So, man, I was driving around looking at like different housing developments. So I found this one area. I went to the city, pulled up the blueprints, and I was like, damn, okay, they're building up this whole area. They're building shops down here. So I got us a crazy deal, like on a 7-bedroom house, you know. So it's just like doing stuff like that where you're always just having growth, networking, like what you're doing, building up like a whole nother thing. A female's going to see all that value. Like, damn, okay, Will, man, he's like a machine. You know, he's multitasking this. He's over here. He's doing this. You know, he's a brolic dude, man. He's working out and stuff, you know, mentality. Like I don't see you ever get like really emotional about anything, man. So women that just have money, man, they kind of actually, they date in the truest form where, if you want to be honest, where I think Manic was touching on this a little bit on the last podcast, where it's just like, they're more or less on the wants. I want a guy for this because the need is kind of gone. Yeah. I mean, they still need you in some capacity because, like, I think if you're like a guy like you, man, you got a lot of intellect. So you're going to come in there, you could solve problems. So they might need you for that aspect. So majority of guys just think like, hey, if I don't bring the money to a certain degree, then she might mistreat me, or, you know, I might not have that leadership. But it's like leadership is way more. It's like guidance. So it's like you still could guide stuff. And just to give you an example, man, there was this one lady that I worked with a long time ago. She was making close to like, I say over probably like 400,000. And she met this guy. He was like good with like handyman stuff, like fixing houses. So she really liked him, but I think society, how like people view stuff, she was like,
I make more than I make more than him. Yeah.
How are my friends gonna look at that? I was like, hey, you're sitting on a gold mine with that guy. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, that dude, what he knows in houses, what you're telling me. I was like, look, you got all this disposable cash. Like, go and get some properties, and this guy could, you know, fix them, and y'all could flip them. Man, she took that advice. Her and that guy, like, she started renting these houses. The amount of time and money he was saving her managing that stuff, it like dwarfed what she was making, you know, yearly. She came back. She was like, hey, I'm glad you gave me that advice, because man, I would have looked past them, you know, just based on what everybody else thinks. And here we are, man. We're doing better. This dude is like, she was like, I don't even have to like look at stuff, and he already done paid back that initial investment. She's like, we're way over. So that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes I think people block them blessings by just like being limited thinking. And it's just like, nah, man, you get a good person. Y'all, like I said, me and my wife, we're paying down debt. We're going to end up saving ourselves like, I say over 500,000 just by paying our house off in 10 years. We don't have no debt. You know, we're both our retirement funds, we're going to be multi-millionaires. So that's where the leadership is. It's like, you're supposed to look long term, because that's where the value is actually when you're working together. And I think if you break it down to the right woman that, you know, is coming to you like in the right manner, like what we were talking about even before, where she's not coming under there. She's just like, hey, I'm gonna help me. Like, Will, whatever you need me to do, I'm supportive of that. That's gonna be the female that's gonna understand when you're coming to her like, hey, if we both work, we could pay this down. We have like more money left over to like go on trips. Me and my wife eats out probably like 3 times a week. So it's just like, hey, I don't want you cooking all the time, because we both work. So we just do things differently. So it's like we're kind of like dating each other, having fun and stuff. Like, man, we got a couple trips booked and stuff this year. So we're getting to that point, man. We're like enjoying a lot of life with each other and stuff. So I think people just look at it so differently versus like, I think they're looking at it at the right now. Yeah. Whereas like it makes sense where it's just like, damn, it could be a little scary. Like, man, if I don't do everything, she might, you know, kind of disrespect me. She might look at me a different way. But like we always say, man, you got that plan, that vision. you lay it out. Women are smart, man. They understand. They're like, okay, wow, damn. And then when you start hitting those like milestones, those goals, and they see that that's because like you put them in the right place and everything's like moving faster, because they know when they're talking to their friends. Because like my wife, man, she'll talk to her friends and they're like, oh man, you know, I wish I would have had somebody like your husband that had me on a path, you know. They're just way behind and stuff. So women do talk and they measure up with each other. So like you start winning with your female, like in that capacity. You're like, man, I'm good. I'm glad we took this approach.
Man, thank you for sharing that. I think what the red pill gets wrong, because you know we see it all the time. You talk about hypergamy all the time, right? Which I do understand. I do agree with hypergamy, but oftentimes the way they define hypergamy is based on the man's income, right? So they would say a man is always you need to make a certain level of money in order to attract women. But I think when you have conversation with women, I'm not disregarding how important the money component is. Yeah. But if you really have conversation with women and ask them what they really want, women just want security. And how can a man provide security to a woman? And you already said it, and you have said it, Damien have said it. They just want a man with a vision and a plan. Yeah. To know that he has a direction where he wants to go, and life is going to be okay. And that's it, right? Because that's why I disagree with the red pill. You need to make 100,000 or be a multimillionaire in order to get modern women. But how many times have I seen guys making $50,000 working construction and they're with the baddest wife?
Oh yeah,
right, the baddest wife. So you know, every woman is different. But if for some women, they'll meet a guy that's making $60,000. He loves that guy, but he has a vision for her and a plan that I can make this life work with this salary. And I'm going to make sure that we can survive and live and build a family based on their salary. And they live their life and they have a good life. I think the money is just the byproduct. Yeah. Of what happens when a man has a plan, when a man has a vision, and he has those qualities we talked about before: accountability, resiliency, discipline, and he does what he needs to do to be able to take care of his woman and his family. The money will come, right? Yeah. But women just want a man with a vision and a plan, because a lot of women understand there's ups and downs. But as long as they know that their man got it, like I know that we're going through a difficult time right now, but my man's not sitting around complaining and crying about our financial situation. He's out there going and making moves, making things happen, right? So even though their situation is not good right now, but you have a plan and vision, and they can. And of course, if you're that type of quality man, women would trust that, right? Would trust that.
Absolutely.
And then as long as you're showing progression every single year, that you guys are doing the things, hitting checkpoints, as Damon always say. And women, when they find a man with a plan, they'll trust that plan, and they'll go through all the ups and downs with you, as long as you have a plan and vision, and as long as you're doing things you need to do to produce results, and in your life is progressing and moving towards a positive direction. I do understand, just to keep it fair, there's some women out there that just want money. They're not willing to go through that process. But we have to understand there's a lot of good girls out there. A lot of times social media represents that all women are like this. But my experience with just dealing with women, and a lot of the women on our panel, they don't need a multi-millionaire. They don't need a $300,000, $400,000 earner. I think we just hear too much of what we see online is money, 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 money. But when you have, but I do agree with that. I'm not disregarding how important that is. And there are a lot of women out there they just want money, which is okay if that's what you want. But if you talk about majority of women, the average woman, most girls, they just want security. That's what women are looking for. And if you, as a man, if you can just provide a plan and a vision for her, and you're putting in that work to get there, they're gonna be with you. Yeah, they're gonna be with you. Yeah.
And like we always say, man, it's like leading by example. So that's why I was like, when we were talking, I was like, man, you and Paulo, man, y'all do that. So man, whatever situation y'all put yourself, just by the way, your mindset, man, you're gonna be they're gonna follow you, man, because you guys are just built like cut from a different cloth. But like I like what you were saying, man. It's just, man, the money is important.
It is important,
yeah. So you can't deny that. But I mean, that's why I always tell people, I'm like, man, you got to remove your ego to a certain degree. And man, I always tell people, talk to a financial advisor. That's why I even like on your podcast, you got your sponsor, man. And I saw that the podcast where you was like interviewing them, and they were giving a lot of good gems, man, just about like family structure. That's why I told you, I was like, man, that was one of my favorite podcasts, period, that I've seen in a long time. And I would actually like to see him on a panel breaking down. We have one with finances, but nah, it's just that type of stuff. Because when you go in there, you talk to like financial people, man, they'll tell you like the fastest group that's becoming millionaires is like people that's working with each other and investing in the home, putting that forward. Because like with me and Manic, like I'll say majority of our workforce is females. And I was just talking to him one day because we just got done doing our bonuses where I had to do everybody's write-ups and, you know, get them extra money and stuff. So, you know, of course I'll go around. I'm like, man, what you gonna do with your bonus this year? Like, oh man, me and my husband, we're gonna pay this off. We're gonna go, you know, we're trying to get a vacation home. So all these females are working with their guys.
Yeah.
You know, all different backgrounds and stuff. So like you said, it's a lot of females out there that they're not, you know, trying to do the 50-50 out of like, I want to snatch power. They're like, look, they understand finances. They're like, hey, we could win. We could pay stuff off quicker. We go this route.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me work with my guy, man. They're bringing money home. And like my wife a couple years ago, man, I had to get a new car because something happened to it. So I was about to go and pay it off. And then my money kept on getting kicked back. I'm like, what the hell's going on? She went up there. She got her bonus for that year and went and paid off my car.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's just like, man, when you're like a good supportive guy, man, you're doing that. When a good woman that came with you, like you met her, came under the right terms, you were intentional, and she's gonna be supportive of you the whole way. So yeah, that's why I say like y'all spot on with those guys that lead with the money.
Yeah.
And they get the wrong chick. Yeah, those guys probably don't need to go under no 50-50. Like if they don't develop in them other areas, they might need to pay.
Yeah, that's why
like guys like y'all that got your stuff together. Oh man, you're gonna be good in any capacity.
Yeah. I mean, just listen to you, Dame, Paulo, all the things that you guys have mentioned. So you guys had a plan. You had a vision. When you met your wife, you weren't as successful as you are today. You didn't have anything that you guys have today, but you had a vision and a plan. And I think that's what men need to hear. You got to have a plan and vision of where your life is going. But that's more inner work that you got to focus on yourself to start self-developing to become a better self-improvement as a man. Yeah, I think we just get caught up on social media, and then we hear the wrong type of women online that we think that represents all women in real life. But every day when I go outside, I see a normal guy, blue collar, and just walking with the baddie.
Oh yeah,
as their wife, right? And I'm like, and that proves to me that what I see in social media is not a true reflection of what we see in reality, because what they say on social media, you have to make 6 figures, 7 figures in order to attract a baddie, and the baddie is going to be loyal to you. But every day I see examples of guys that are just working a 9-to-5 blue collar job, respectable job, guys that build the infrastructure and maintain the infrastructure society. Without them, you know, society wouldn't function. And these guys have wives, because if you leave with your money, then you're going to be simping. Yeah. You know, so you leave with your vision and your plan and your values as a man. And based on what I've heard from women, when they see a good plan from the man that really want, they'll stick with that plan.
We talk about a lot of like celebrity stuff too, but it's just like, man, just think about those guys that make the top tier money and stuff, and they get left. Yeah. So it's like if money was the end all, then you know you would have seen no like millionaire get a divorce, because I mean that's the ultimate like cush life right there. Yeah. So like I said, I mean it just doesn't really matter. It's like more or less like you said, those intangibles you bring to the relationship in a lot of cases.
And also you made a great point, because if you have a plan and a vision, that means that you're gonna adjust your lifestyle to accomplish that plan and vision, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest complaints I hear from a lot of women, I would ask them, do you want a man that's making 100,000, 200,000, 300,000? And they said, yeah, I dated that type of man before, and that was the worst because he ended up being broke, or you know, he lost all his money. What showed me when she said that is that man probably didn't have a long-term goal or vision for his future. He probably just made some money, you know, lived in the moment and lost all of it.
Yeah.
But if you have like a 5-10 year goal, make a lot of money right now, you understand that you're still not where you need to be 5 to 10 years from now. So you're not gonna waste your money. You're gonna save and invest it because you're thinking of the bigger picture, right? But I think that's where it just goes back to plan and vision, because a lot of times girls will go with guys that have a lot of money, but they don't have a plan and vision for the future, and then they'll just lose it all.
But see, I like what you said, man, because like even like just looking at what you're outlining, it's just like, okay, that guy that doesn't have no plan, and they typically will pull in that female that's only with them for the money. So, hey, she's gonna help you blow all that money.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, like once you get to that rough state, she's looking at you like, hey,
yeah,
I'm out of here. You're a weak man and stuff. She don't help you spend all that money. But see, a good smart woman too, you know, she's gonna like walk you off that cliff. Or she's gonna try like, hey man, like why don't we try to save some money? Why don't we don't need to purchase that. Let's be simplistic.
Yeah.
So I mean, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, getting that right female too, man. That one that's willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
She's gonna be like, hey, I don't need all this like materialistic stuff. Let's take it simple. We could just, you know, do, instead of going overseas for like a vacation, like let's do something local, man, where we could like chill out and stuff. So
yeah. Thank you for emphasizing that. You're right. Make sure you meet a woman that's willing to invest and make that plan manifest just as much as you do, and they're willing to make those sacrifices. You know, if we have to cut down on our eating out, or if we have to cut down on our transportation bill, sell that car. If you find a woman that's willing to do that, that's a good woman.
Yeah, that's the key, man. It all ties back,
like you said. If you find a woman who just wants to spend the money right now, but doesn't want to make those sacrifices to obtain the longer and achieve the bigger picture, and that's probably not the type of woman that you want. Yeah,
she's definitely gonna help you blow that money. She's gonna be there for the fun stuff.
Yeah. I put 100% accountability on the men. I do not blame the women when the relationship fails. I know a lot of men on this space hate me for that when I say that. In my perspective, if I'm the leader, I'm responsible for the relationship. Okay. I'm the one setting the standard expectation. I'm the one leading. But for a lot of guys, they like to choose the wrong woman, but avoid accountability on that. They like to mess around with everything that moves. Yeah. And they complain about why they're not attracting good women.
Yes.
But they also don't put in the work to know how to lead. A lot of men think that just by default that I'm a man, that I'm a leader. Leadership is not something you're born with. It's something that you have to learn and build. So that was the clip that we saw. All right. So what do you think? I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah. So when I saw that clip, I definitely wanted to ask you some questions about that.
Yeah.
So break it down a little bit. Why you put like 100% responsibility on the men? You know they're gonna ask you. So I was like, let me play devil's advocate.
My definition of what a leader is that if you're the leader, you bear the responsibility of the people that you're responsible for, that you take care of, right? And for me, the way I see it is, it's the same thing when it comes to a relationship. It's the same thing when you're a business owner. It's the same thing when you're a CEO. That if you're the one leading, if you're the primary leader and the decision maker, you have to bear the responsibility when things go right, but you also have to bear the responsibility when things go wrong. I have to preface it by this. As a man, if you want to be the leader, you want to be the decision maker, if you want that responsibility, and there's a great quote by Spider-Man. Have you heard of that quote?
Yeah.
Great power comes with great responsibility, right? So if you want that power and authority in your relationship, then the 100% of the accountability is going to be on you as a man. Now, I would also say this. If you don't want that responsibility, if you don't want to be a leader and you want to have a 50-50 relationship with your woman, or you want your woman to lead, then I'll blame both you guys.
Okay. I like that.
I'll blame both you guys, or I'll blame the woman if she's the one leading the relationship. So whoever bears that role and that responsibility, that's who I blame. But most guys, all I hear online, I want to be the leader. I want to be the primary decision maker. I want women to respect me. I want authority over the relationship. So most guys want that role, want that responsibility. But it just seems like that these guys don't want to become the type of men to be that leader. Because leader, like I mentioned in that video, leadership is not something that you're just gonna be born with as a man just because you're a man. And I think there's a lot of men, and I know Damon have said this, a lot of guys think just because they have balls, automatically qualifies them to lead. And the woman should automatically submit to him automatically just because he has some balls, he has a dick, right?
Okay. Can I give you a scenario though?
Go ahead.
Because no, I agree with that breakdown, but because I know people like always kind of gave you guys pushback. Yeah. Because I have the same sentiments, but I said, this is why we're here.
This is why we're here.
So okay, say like you're doing all the leadership stuff, man. You're disciplined and you're taking care of everything, and she messes around and cheats with you. Do you still even consider like that the responsibility on a guy, like to a certain degree, he should take ownership of that? Because I know some guys like they always ask that question, like, what happened if the female did this? And you still blame yourself to a certain degree?
Yes, and here's why. And I've heard that multiple. That's always the argument they use to push back against me. And Balafest, I've said this on the previous podcast. That example is always the final outcome. When a woman cheats on you and leaves you and goes out there and sleeps with another man, that's usually like the final outcome. But we never considered that all the things that led up to her to finally make that decision to cheat. When people get in a relationship, right, especially when you get married, you're not going into a relationship and thinking, eventually I'm going to cheat on this person, right? Usually something happens within that relationship for them to feel like, both the men and the woman, to eventually feel like that this relationship is not worth it anymore. I need to go seek somewhere else. So a lot of times we often ignore all the things that we saw failing in a relationship, whether it's months, whether it's years, that eventually the woman in your relationship finally got to the point that she decided that she wanted to go cheat on you. Women don't just wake up one day and say, I just want to cheat. For you, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, I'm going to cheat on my wife. If you did decide to make that decision, it's something that it's years of things that have happened.
Like a build up.
Yeah, that build up eventually led you to a point. But the thing is, a lot of these guys don't want to bear the responsibility, because I do believe at some point you have to see it. You know, there's a lot of times where you guys were having arguments, or you saw things that maybe she stopped giving you sex. Yeah. All right, that's an indicator, and that's one of the biggest complaints I hear from a lot of guys saying, "Oh, my woman is not giving me sex." Then that's something you need to address. The very first time you saw your woman not giving you sex, very early in maybe year 2, year 3, year 4, you have to address that right there, but not wait till like year 10. All right, yeah. When she's filing for divorce and going sleeping with another man. That's my pushback with these guys that would tell me, hey, what if she cheats on you? Hey, what if she, you know, we're creatures of habit. We don't just wake up one day and make those big decisions. Usually our biggest decisions came from like it was a buildup of minor, smaller decisions. They eventually led to you to make a decision. You know what? I'm done with this. Okay. Does that make sense? And I think, yeah.
And just one last thing. Let me ask you this. So do you think like by kind of even taking because even when a female cheats on you, I like what you said, there's typically a buildup.
Yeah, there's a buildup.
But also like, do you feel like to a certain degree, like when you are taking like ownership for like the mistakes, it gives you an opportunity to like assess everything, like the red flags, things you might have missed, and it like makes you, it kind of like gives you growth and improvement also. Yes. Is that how you like also see the leadership development?
If you're really accountable for everything you do in your life as a man, then you really take consideration of everything that you do. What I see from a lot of guys is they're complaining about the final income, but there's no conversation of the things early in the relationship, and then like having those hard, like how many times have you had conversations on the panel where both men and women have gone into relationships, but they've never expressed their expectations, right? Yeah. They've never had those hard conversations up front. Right. So I think most guys aren't doing the work. That's why I mentioned before. You mentioned something early in the podcast, which is very important, picking the right woman. Yeah. Right. How many guys pick a woman that's not good for them and try to reform them, or they'll pick up like a 3 or 4 or pick up those undesirable type of women you should not have picked, and you're trying to reform them into a loyal, committed wife. As a man, if you're accountable, you know, you pick the right woman, you're very selective, be able to lead her by setting your expectations up front. Hey, look, this is my non-negotiables, right? Sex, I need that, right? Oh, absolutely. I'm not going into this. I'm not going into this long term if I'm not getting sex from you.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out, right? And of course, you're also reciprocating yourself with your responsibility and duties towards her, right? And you're making sure that you're accountable for that as well. Most guys are not doing that.
So you think like majority of people, like, because I like what you said, it's like they don't want to. They don't focus on prevention. They focus like when it spirals out of control somewhat. Like it's an issue or a major problem. So that's what they kind of like everybody's like vocalizing at this from what you're seeing. Because man, you've been talking to so many people for so long.
Yeah, well, it's the same way we see you know, when I see entrepreneurs talk about the way they run their business, and I could tell the guys is gonna make it long term. Between the guys is gonna, you know, probably die out in 2, 3, 4 years. When you see the guys that have been in business for a long time, they always bear that responsibility. You know what? I have to make sure I hire the right people. I have to make sure I build the right culture. I have to make sure that my people are taken care of, the customers are taken care of. But then you see another side of business owners. The market is shit. Economy is shit. People don't want to work no more. They're always outward, right? Complaining about how hard it is. And I can already tell, that person's not taking accountability and they're not going to make it far. You know, the guys I see successful, especially when it comes to a business perspective, they're like, so I'm the leader, I'm the CEO. I've had some bad experiences or previous relationships, but now I'm going to take accountability on that and do all the things I didn't do before in my new one. Dirk, thank you for making it to the pod.
That was a dope conversation, man.
Final thoughts for everybody out there.
The biggest thing is just like, man, definitely take, I'll say feedback from anybody. you know, be open to ask questions. And that's, like I said, that's why one thing always drew me to, like, you know, talking to you and Paulo, man, because like I learned from y'all too, man. So I took away from that first conversation we had. I'm like, damn, okay, I didn't think about it like this. And I think when you like remove your ego and, like you said, you actually start building yourself up and you like block everybody out and you're doing it from like the right reasons, man, you're going to be in a good space. And I think females could spot that too, man. And that's the thing where guys, when they're like, oh man, women don't see like, but only a small portion of guys. Well, be in that portion, you know, of guys that's seen, you know, AKA work on yourself, you know. So I think a lot of times, like you said, I like at the end, man, when you relate it back to like business and you're like, I could tell which guys are actually able to build a business, because, you know, they're gonna like internalize it. They're gonna be like, hey man, okay, I need to improve my customer service, I need to do this, versus the guys that's like, oh man, my people are shit, this. So I thought that was brilliant how you said that. So it's just like, now when you take accountability, it's gonna help you improve. You're gonna be able to start spotting stuff, so when you get in that next relationship, man, you're not gonna have the same issues. So dope conversation, man.
And the last thing I want to add on before we close, the reason why I have a hard stance on that, because I don't believe it helps the guys who are struggling. It's a better message for me to tell these guys who are struggling, take accountability for your life, instead of saying the problem was the woman. I don't think that message helps those guys finally taking responsibility for their life. If we tell these guys who are struggling, hey, you know, it's not your fault, it's the woman's fault, then these guys will always dwell in the past and dwell in their own misery and never change. I think the message they really need to hear is like, take responsibility for your life, put that accountability back on you, self-reflect. And I think self-improvement for a man, that's always a message to overcome all our struggles. And that's why I have a hard stance on it, no matter what example they throw my way. Because I just don't think for the guys who are at rock bottom, the only message that's gonna get them out the rock bottom, wherever they at, is take accountability.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's why I was like, I wanted to review it, man, because like I said, I wanted you to elaborate on it, because I always hear people like always give that pushback, like, oh, what would happen if she did this? Then you're still gonna even take ownership? Like, man, because like I like how you said, there's a buildup, so it just don't start at that day where she like, let me assess that. So
let me just throw away this 10-year relationship. People don't do that.
Nah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about it like that.
All right, but thanks to everybody for watching. Thank you, Drake.